In the spring of 1945, the British Chiefs of Staff started to make plans against the Soviet Union. Winston Churchill, already in April of 1945, instructed the Joint Planning Staff of the Military Command to develop a plan for an offensive against the Soviet Union. This was Operation Unthinkable. The study became the first Cold War-era contingency plan for war between the West and the Soviet Union. At the end of 1945, there was an aggravation in relations between the Soviet Union and the Western Allies in connection with the refusal of the Soviet Union to withdraw troops from northern Iran. Tensions between the Soviet Union and its former allies reached their peak in 1949 as a result of the blockade of West Berlin. All this happened against the backdrop of the establishment of communist regimes in the countries of Eastern Europe controlled by the Soviet Union and active support for the then strong communist movement in Western Europe. With the overwhelming superiority of the Soviet forces in Europe, military weakness and communist infiltration of the two leading Western European countries, France and Italy, Western politicians had fears that the Soviet Union could undertake large-scale aggression and capture Western Europe in one swift throw. The first American plan in case of war with the Soviet Union, called Plan Totality, was developed at the end of 1945. This plan envisioned a nuclear attack on the Soviet Union with 20 to 30 atomic bombs. It listed 20 Soviet cities for a nuclear first strike, including Moscow, Omsk, Saratov, and Leningrad. However, this plan was actually a disinformation ploy. After the two atomic bombings of Japan during August of 1945, the United States had no nuclear weapons ready for use. They had used up all their uranium in the bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and a large amount of their plutonium as well. But the planning of a nuclear first strike continued. In 1946, the US possessed only 9 atomic bombs and 27 B-29s capable at any one time of delivering them. The strike unit would have been the 509th Composite Group, which was created during World War II and tasked with the operational deployment of nuclear weapons. It conducted the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August of 1945. The group was activated in December of 1944 and operated silver-plate B-29s, which were specially configured to enable them to carry nuclear weapons. But it was later determined that an attack by the 509th Group during 1947 to 1948 timeframe would have required at least 5 to 6 days just to transfer custody of the bombs and deploy the aircraft and weapons to forward operation bases before launching nuclear strikes. Operation Dropshot was prepared in 1949 during the early stages of the Cold War. At the time, the US nuclear arsenal was limited in size, based mostly in the United States, and depended on bombers for delivery. Dropshot, including mission profiles that would have used 300 nuclear bombs and 30,000 high-explosive bombs on more than 200 targets in 100 cities and towns, to wipe out approximately 85% of the Soviet Union's industrial potential at one single stroke. The infliction of numerous nuclear strikes on government and industrial centers in view the location of many of them in densely populated cities, inevitably meant the destruction of tens of millions of Soviet citizens. It is interesting to note that approximately 100 of the 300 nuclear weapons were targeted to destroy Soviet combat aircraft on the ground. The scenario was devised prior to the development of intercontinental ballistic missiles and even included the note that the entire plan would be invalidated if rocketry became a cheap and effective means of delivering a nuclear weapon. After the secret test of the first Soviet atomic bomb in September of 1949, the US military recorded radioactive traces of a nuclear test in the air sample during a scheduled flight over the Pacific Ocean. After that, it became clear that the United States is not the only nation anymore which possesses the nuclear strike capability. In 1956, the Soviet Air Force completed a flight to a distance corresponding to the distance to the United States and back with aerial refueling. From that moment on, the US nuclear blackmail against the Soviet Union has lost all meaning. When the flight tests ended, information was leaked that the Soviet Union had the possibility of a retaliatory strike against the United States. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and to make sure you don't miss any of my future work, please make sure you subscribe to my channel and press the bell notification button. Thank you, and see you in the next video.